The Underbog is number 2 of 3 of the Quellfing dungeons in my coverage of the Burning Crusade heroics. For killing mobs here, you get reputation with the Cenarian Expedition faction, up to Honored on Normal, and Exalted on Heroic. And to enter Heroic, you need the Reservoir Key, which requires Revered reputation at first, and later on it'll be nerfed to Honored. You can find the entrance by finding this giant pipe fixture in the middle of the lake, and once you're inside, the Underbog is the dungeon to the right. This is a Heroic mode guide, but you can adapt it to normal if you wish. Underbog is another medium-ish difficulty Heroic, I think. A bit more of a mix of enemy type in this dungeon compared to the others. You have your humanoid mobs as always, so Polymorph, Sap, Seduce, and Mind Control are going to be useful, but you also have a lot of beast mobs, so the Druid's Hibernate will be handy, Scare Beast if it won't pull anything, and there are some elementals, so if you have a Warlock, have that Banish at the ready. And as usual, here's the Mind Control list for any priests out there, so definitely take advantage of that. You'll start off the run with a couple of Underbat patrols. Much like Blizzard with the level boost, these things will backstab you, so keep them in front of you, and keep your wallets secured. Next, you'll have a 3-pack of Shamblers and Lurkers. These are elementals, so banish if you have a Warlock, and they have some pretty annoying abilities. Itchy Spores is a disease that explodes for AoE damage after 8 seconds, and puts another AoE dot on everyone who got hit by it. As you can see, I totally 100% intentionally hit my party members with it, for experimental purposes for the sake of the video.
That's a lot of damage!
It can get out of control really quickly, so spread out and cure the disease before it pops if you can. If you cleanse it, the AoE doesn't pop. And note that it is a cast, so you can interrupt it and slow their casts with Mind Numbing and Curse of Tongues. If all else fails though, just do what you do in real life and distance yourself from others, both physically and emotionally, by staying in your basement playing World of Warcraft all day. They also have Fungal Regrowth, which is a dispellable and spell-stealable heal over time. The Lurkers, on the other hand, have an Enrage, and will deal a truckload of damage, so when that happens, stuns, kiting, and running like a bitch will be very helpful. So you'll enter this giant room, and there are some trash skip opportunities here. You can go in the water and bypass most of this. There are fish in the water, so go as a group and jump to a ledge if you need. If you have a shaman with water walking here, it's much easier. And at this ramp, you can jump up and avoid the 3-pack to the right. There will be some patrols here though that you'll need to kill. If you decide to clear the room though, just pull one by one, and be patient because there are some patrols wandering about, and sticking to the left in general will allow you to skip some packs at least. You'll find a Bog Giant in this room as well, and these guys are not to be trifled with. They hit very hard, slow your tanks so you can't kite them that well, and they deal AoE damage to anyone near them, and they're immune to CC, even stuns and slows. And over time they'll cast Growth, which increases their damage by 15%, and it stacks. At the top of the ramp will be a double giant pull, and this is one of the harder pulls in this place. You can skip these by hanging to the right and hugging the wall. This will leave you with less room for the boss though. Otherwise, if you choose to clear him, you just have to suck it up and tank really, as you can't CC these at all. If you don't skip them, the best way to handle it, in my opinion, is to just save your cooldowns for this pull. This pull, in my opinion, is harder than the boss right after them, so don't worry so much about saving them for the boss. And make sure that you focus one down first to minimize the damage from the stacking buff. After that, you have your first boss, Hungarfen. 2 wipe mechanics with this guy. One is he'll start spawning mushrooms on everyone throughout the fight. Make sure that you stay away from them because they will do AoE damage, and the tank will have to move the boss if the melee DPS get overrun by shrooms. A tip is to enable health bars, as it makes them much easier to spot because they start off really tiny. They do also have quite a lot of health, so don't even worry about damaging them. Just stay away from them and focus the boss. At 20%, he'll use his Foul Spore ability, which will damage any nearby person, and heal him for that damage, so everyone, including the tank, should move away from him at that point. And from there, just continue dodging the mushrooms as they pop up, and finish them off. Afterwards, progress through the Wandering Giants one by one. You can skip this first one here by sticking left. The rest though you'll have to clear until you reach this hallway with tons of humanoids. Before that though, we do have a super skip here. Like a Rainbow Road level skip, but only under very specific circumstances. On your way over, you'll have this ledge, seemingly out of reach, but you can reach it if you have A, the rocket boots with engineer, and B, a slow fall like the Noggenfogger elixir. You can do this with just one person if the jumper is a non-druid healer. Once you're over, the rest of the group goes to the very edge and dies, and the healer reses them from there. This does skip the Hydra boss though too, so it's strictly for those who want to get through it as fast as possible. I don't know, maybe it popped up as the heroic daily or something. But for most groups, you have to go through the normie route. This hallway has a few patrols, so be very careful here and drag everything outside. Tons of different mobs here, and I'll cover the important ones. The sentries do have an interrupt, so don't stand near them if you can help it. The spearmen will enrage and use a viper sting, which is a mana drain poison, so cleanse that if you can. And the healers, as the name suggests, heal. A single heal, an AoE heal, renew. The renew is dispellable or stealable. Just keep interrupts on them and slow their casts with mind numbing or curse of tongues. The oracles are a hybrid of mages and warlocks. I mean, just look at this ability list. These guys have more mechanics than 95% of the raid bosses in vanilla. The most important one is amplified damage, which increases damage taken on the target by 50%. This is dispellable though. Their elemental armor increases resistances to magic, but this is also dispellable and stealable. They'll Frost Nova, and they have a host of other spells, so keep interrupts on them. And the tribesmen are also worth mentioning. They're dual wielders, and they enrage, so they pump out quite a lot of damage. Try to stun them when they turn red to take some pressure off the tank and heals. You can skip this patrol at the end of the hallway if you time it. It is dangerous though because you have more trash upstairs, and you'll basically be trapping yourself if something goes wrong. So it's your choice to skip them or not here. And another skip here is if you jump on this little barrel, and then on the spear rack, you can jump into the water and run through the fish and up the ramp on the opposite side. This skips 4 packs total. The fish in the water can be annoying, but if you jump down as a group, you should easily make it to the ramp. The boss will dip in the water as well, so make sure that you have plenty of room before you jump. If you decide to just clear though, there is a consistent way of doing this part. You want to pull these first 2 groups back one by one, timing it when the patrol is out of range, and then the patrol, and then finally the last pack. If you didn't skip the patrol down below, you can use this ramp to line of sight. Otherwise, you'll need to pull way back and interrupt and whatnot. The next boss is the Hydra, Ghaz'an, and this is purely a position fight. He has a breath, so he should never be facing the group, and a tail sweep, so no one should be behind them unless they're out of range. Here you can see I'm out of range, but my girlfriend isn't, so now I don't even have an imaginary girlfriend. He has an acid spit, which deals damage and puts on a dot, undispellable, and thrash, which adds some burst to the tank. I recommend fighting him on his platform, and have your melee facing him perpendicularly on his sides, so they're not getting hit by the sweep or the breath. The cones are pretty big, so you have to be accurate here. As for ranged, you can be behind him as long as you're out of range of his tail sweep. The way we handled it is that we had ranged on the pipe behind him, but out of range, and the tank just turns him away. Obviously, if you have melee in your group, you want to pull him further on the platform to make room on the sides. It just happened that we had 3 Chad Warlocks in this group. Afterwards, you want to jump off the pipe into the water, and then down into the path below, and you'll run into a few new enemy types. Fenrays, much like their Slave Pen's counterpart, have a single target casted Horrify, which will cause you to dart in a random direction like Usain Bolt. You travel incredibly far, so, as always, pull these back so you don't get feared into another pack. It is interruptible, but it's also a 1-second cast, and they come in packs, so the chances of interrupting every single one is pretty slim. Just expect them to get it off. There are also Lycal Stingers and Wasps patrolling about. These shoot out dispellable poisons, they enrage. They're not too bad though. In my opinion, the best way to handle them is to just cast slow, and don't interrupt. Their poison spit only hits for like 1,000 and the dot for 100, and if they have Curse of Tongues, they cast it so slowly. If you interrupt them, they'll melee, which deals way more damage. Sometimes interrupting will make things worse, and I think these mobs are a good example of that. This hallway in general isn't bad, aside from the fear mechanic. Eventually, you'll run into the next boss, but before you pull him, there is a patrolling Underbog Lord, and I always like to take this guy out before the boss, as he'll patrol quite close, and you don't want to risk pulling him during the boss fight. These guys are the big brothers to those giants. They have the same base abilities, but they just hit even harder if you can believe that. Luckily, they do help you out with the new ability. They'll periodically knock the tank back, which is a good thing as they essentially kite themselves. So use it to your advantage and let it come to you while the healer tops you off. Once it's down though, it's time for the next boss, the Swamplord, and a druid role-playing as his pet. The druid can be CC'd on normal mode I believe, but not on heroic, so your tank will just have to pick both of them up. It's a pretty simple fight to be honest. His main mechanic is that he'll AoE freezing trap everyone, and then run away and aimed shot. Unless you're AFK though, you'll easily reach him before he finishes the cast. He does have a dead zone still, so once you're in melee range, you're okay. So kill him, and then bring the druid to 20%, at which point she'll turn friendly. After another Underbog Lord, you'll run into the final boss, the Black Stalker. The group wiper in this fight is the Chain Lightning. Every now and then he'll cast this on a random party member, and it'll chain to any other nearby party members, so spread out for that. He also puts on a static charge that'll deal some AoE damage to nearby allies, but if you're already spread out, you shouldn't have any trouble with this. He'll occasionally levitate someone up in the air. You can still cast, heal, and attack. It's really not that big of a deal actually. It's kind of cool in fact to get levitated I think. Just make sure that you're close to the ground before it fades so you don't take unnecessary fall damage. On heroic mode only, he'll summon some stationary adds who will cast Lightning Bolt. Really, the most effective way to handle these is to ignore them and just burn down the boss before they become a problem. This boss doesn't have a lot of health at all. I suppose if your DPS is low, you might want to assign one person to take him out. As you can see, we just zerged it. Another valid strategy if you have a warlock is to just throw up a Curse of Tongues on them as they spawn and still burn the boss. Once he's dead though, you'll be able to tell people that you've cleared the Underbog Heroic in the recreation of a 15-year-old video game. Not too bad of a dungeon in my opinion. The hardest part I think are the giant trash mobs. I've wiped on them way more than anything else in this place. Pretty easy bosses overall, and the rest of the trash isn't too bad. This is my fourth in a series of guides where I cover each and every heroic in the Burning Crusade Classic, and if you enjoyed it or found it helpful, I'll have a playlist to the rest in the description that you might find handy, as well as general tips and tricks that you can use in all heroics in the game. Like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.